Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Roundup. I am your host, David Fox. With me, as usual, is my co-host, UberHansen, and we are here live after doing pregame show last week for Monday Night Football. We are now technically celebrating 2 Victory Mondays. I guess last week would have been Victory Tuesday, but I also don't care. I'm here to celebrate 2 straight wins and have a good time doing it. It was a bit of a rough start for the Bills to start. However, they were able to become the team that we know that they are. And more than that, using their latest new toy in Amari Cooper along the way in a pretty effective way, about as effectively as anyone could have realistically hoped, given that he had less than a week's worth of practice in this to lead up to this game. Overall, we have plenty of things to say, plenty of things to talk about. But the first thing we're going to do first, Uber, how are you?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the last time we spoke, the Bills were 3-2. There was a decent chance that they could have dropped to 3-3. I think we both had them beating the Titans. So 4-3 right there was a fair number to get to in the next 2 weeks before we spoke tonight. And they're 5-2, and every other team in the AFC East is just literally pooping their pants like as we speak. And the Bills are out to like their largest lead through 7 games in the Sean McDermott era, in a season where they were not the favorite to win the AFC East. It fills me with joy. It makes me so irrationally happy, and the possibility that and it's not going to happen, but the possibility that the Jets could lose to the Patriots and fall to 2-6, like that would sustain me for life if that happens this weekend. Again, there's no way it happens, but if it does, I will be quite happy.
So I was curious because I know the Jets are 2-5 and the Dolphins only had 2 wins. I don't know if you know, but why don't you guess who is the second team in the AFC East standings right now?
Oh, 2-4 would be the Dolphins.
That's right, because the Dolphins have had their bye week. They're 2-4. The Jets are 2. The Jets are in 3rd place in the AFC East behind the Dolphins, who haven't had Tua for over a month.
It's insane, man. Honestly, and not that the Dolphins coaching staff is doing a very good job at all, but if you look at that Jets team on paper, like I'll say this, look at that Jets team on paper, take out the quarterback, for instance, which I know is a very big caveat here, but that roster is so freakishly talented. Like it's more talented, I think, than the Bills roster. Yet the Bills keep winning. The quarterback having a lot to do with that, but coaching kind of matters, and I think the Jets are proving that week in and week out. Same with the Dolphins, who, they have this wonderkin that's supposed to be this boy genius as an offensive person, and seemingly Tua Tagovailoa is down, and he just has no idea. Like Tyreek Hill doesn't play for them anymore, essentially. Jalen Waddle doesn't touch the football. It's astounding to watch 2 teams in our division both have coaches that have no idea what they're doing, when very often as Bills fans, we hear that our coach has no idea what he's doing, yet he's 5-2, and the Bills are out to a 2.5 game lead in the AFCs.
On the topic of Davante Adams, who was recently traded to the New York Jets from the Las Vegas Raiders. So he got traded after a game where the Raiders lost to the Steelers 32-15 or something like that.
Yeah,
which is exactly what he experienced last night, losing to the Steelers again. And both teams after those losses are now 2-5. You can't tell me that God or whoever you believe runs this universe doesn't have a sense of humor. Just little things just make you think, like, what are the odds? What are the odds of something like that happening? And also, it's kind of funny that Davante Adams had about as much to do with the Jets' loss in that Steelers game than he did with the Raiders' loss to the Steelers, considering he didn't even play with the Raiders against the Steelers. And Oh man, just what a day. What a day it was. Between the Jets losing and the Mets losing the NLCS to the Dodgers. Not that I like support Los Angeles sports because I think that's a fake concept.
Hmm.
But it was really a glorious day of pure Schadenfreude for me. As someone who wants to see both of those franchises directly into the Atlantic Ocean.
I mean, I'm not going to share the same baseball opinion with you there, but the watching the Jets and the Patriots and the Texans and the Dolphins, watching them all lose yesterday, just filled me with so much joy. It was a great day after the first half of the Bills game.
On the topic of baseball, though, I mean, your begrudgingly loved New York Yankees are in the World Series, and you're bitter about it.
I hope they get well. I'm so conflicted. I do not like the Dodgers. I want the Yankees to lose, but I want the Dodgers to lose more. So I guess I'm rooting for the Yankees begrudgingly, literally, because of a lot of reasons. Yeah, so we'll see.
Just the tip of canoe says, what I do, homies. Always appreciate you here, man. Still one of my favorite usernames on here. Tim A, let's go. C Rose, go Bills. I agree, go Bills. Ralph Wilson Sr. from the grave says, Devontae wants to pay New Jersey taxes for the privilege too. James Leclerc says Metcalf out for the Hawks. We will talk about that potentially later if we get to the Seahawks, which we might and we might not. Brittany Lurie says I popped in here and we're catching strays. I hope the Dodgers win. Gotcha. We're not here to talk about baseball, even though we already did. That's enough baseball. I don't hate baseball anymore, but I'm also not going to talk about baseball here. Wade Reed says, I need to trade a wide receiver for running back. Do I get rid of Kupp, Cooper, or Harrison Jr. for Aaron Jones? Can you rate this? If you can trade Cooper Kupp for Aaron Jones, I'd probably do that. Because I mean, even if Kupp comes back, I'm not guaranteeing that like he's going to be great or that he won't get injured again. Because that dude is, I don't like saying injury prone because I think that's dumb. And not like a real thing, but he's susceptible to injuries. Let's call it that.
That's a good point.
All right. Before we get any further, let's talk about one of the most important things, and that is the lovely sponsors of the show, and that is you fine folks. This side. This is where I need to be. As you fine folks, especially you One Pass Club Access members. Folks, if you are watching this show and you enjoy what we do and you enjoy what Cover One does, the best way to support us, other than hitting the like button and subscribing and leaving comments and all that fun stuff that you normally do with YouTube videos, is to subscribe to Cover One Pass. At cover1.net, you pay $60 a year. You get access to the best Bills content out there. And that's not me bragging. That's just fact. It's the most comprehensive group of content creators. We try to bring you as many different angles from which to talk about and analyze and view the Bills. We talk about coaching, film, players, and salary cap, and management, and scouting, and film, and analytics. I said film twice. Whatever. But
there's a lot of film talk.
There is a lot of film talk, and if you wanted to, I mean, look at what Eric put out today on Amari Cooper's contributions in the Titans game. It's a great breakdown, and you should watch it. There's plenty more where that comes from, and with Cover One Pass, you get access to that, and you get access to the Discord server, which has all sorts of people who want to talk about the Bills, video games, music, TV, movies, other things, I'm sure. And it's just a really great group of people. It's a great day for game day as well if you want to stay off of Twitter and all those sorts of other sites. It's just the best $60 you'll spend on football, and certainly the best $60 you'll spend on Buffalo Bills related content. So sign up today. It's 100% worth it. Plus, with our newest partnership with 26 Shirts, you get a Cover One Pass 26 Shirts collaboration shirt. Which, for the record, and we'll show this after I get rid of this undersized graphic, that is this the shirt, by the way, or is this our shirt? I don't remember.
I think it's the shirt. I believe. Okay. I'm 95% sure.
I'm going to take that 5% and say that it's not, just so I don't overpromise on something that I'm not sure about, but you do get a shirt, you get a decal, you get a great letter from Greg, Aaron, and Eric. It's seriously best $60 you'll spend on football. Sign up today. Do we want to show off these shirts? Because I'm not gonna lie, these are pretty cool shirts. I mean, it's just super cool. Which, for the record, by the way, we did not coordinate this. We both showed up wearing this. And that is why we are co-hosts. Just saying.
It literally is like, and this isn't just me being a homer about it because I happen to work for Cover One. This is the coolest shirt that I own. It's freaking awesome. It's really, really cool.
You're wearing your coolest shirt with your coolest hat. Let's be very clear. All right. So we do have, thanks to you, some wonderful show notes. And while I bring them up, I'm going to have you start because I don't know why I don't have them up right now. But I'll have you lead this off. What do you want to talk about first?
Yeah, so just a little bit of news and notes to get us started. I think the first thing we should go to is the end of a saga, at least one saga for the Jets, and that's Haason Reddick has ended his holdout, apparently. He was in the building today.
Yeah, it's interesting that after he requests not after he requests a trade, but after he's given permission to seek a trade with a new agent in Drew Rosenhaus, that suddenly he's more amenable to the Jets. And when they're on a 3-game losing streak too, it's odd. It's another thing in this whole saga that simply does not make sense from either side, really. I mean, the Jets making the trade initially was weird without giving him a new deal. And then Reddick holding out, it was like, the Jets, so silly. And then it was like, Reddick just kept going with it. And it was just like, dude, after a certain point, like, what are you doing? And especially when, your own agent is like, that's enough. We're done with this. Like, we cannot in good conscience keep representing you. That takes a lot for an agent to do. Just that's pretty crazy to do. And then to get a new agent and then get permission to seek a trade, and now you want to go back? Nothing about this makes any sort of sense. And then you just sort of throw in international traveling to Japan as part of this, I guess.
Yeah. The one thing that I'm perplexed about, and I have not found an answer anywhere, and I did ask Greg Thompson, our cap expert, but he did miss the message. So I might have to ask him again. I do not know if the fines that Haason Reddick incurred for not showing up count against the cap. Because he had a cap hit coming into this season, but do they get it next year as rollover? I believe that you still have to pay that. Like, the fines go to the NFL, but you still take that cap. The reason that's so important is because apparently Haason Reddick renegotiated his deal so that he can also make that money back on the season, which presumably would be a likely to be earned or not likely to be earned bonus, which then gets applied to next season if it's not likely to be earned as a cap hit. So Haason Reddick with the holdout might have incidentally created this whole cap issue for the Jets where he might have somehow doubled his cap hit in a single season. I don't know how the fines work though, but just another part of this whole Haason Reddick and Jets goof that makes me giggle, I'll say.
That's very fair. Yeah, that's an interesting scenario to that's a part of this whole saga. Yeah, it's all very weird. It doesn't make any sense from either side at this point. Neither side looks good right now for various reasons, and it's so messy and so weird. Yeah, I don't even know what to do with this. Like, I can't even say like I'm happy about this sort of being resolved. It's just so weird and odd, and whatever. We've spent enough time on this.
Classic Jets, yeah.
Yes, very classic Jets. You have in here, I assume just because, Patrick Mahomes has 8 interceptions on the season, but the Chiefs are 6-0. And
yeah, of course.
It's so typical that this is what's happening right now. I think that most people's view of the Chiefs this season is generally the same, which is that the offense is really not that great right now. They definitely lack explosive playmaking. They don't have the pass catchers that they want for the second straight year. Travis Kelce has that something's up there, not like from a conspiratorial angle or anything, but like that whatever has been there for years is not working. It's not connecting. I don't know what the issue is there, but something is not working between those two. And no one else is really stepping up to the plate. They're trying to get Xavier Worthy involved, but in a very typical kind of Andy Reid-ish sort of way, in that it's a little too forceful at times and not enough normalcy at times. Like, just like, hey, can you just let this guy be a receiver? Because, like, I mean, I felt like the reaction to the Chiefs drafting Xavier Worthy was a lot, just because he was fast and, like, of course, fast Chiefs, blah. But I mean, I liked Xavier Worthy. I wasn't in love with Xavier Worthy coming out, but I felt like this guy was actually a better route runner than you kind of assumed he would be. And it's just, they just don't give him those opportunities. And I don't really get that. It just doesn't make sense. And especially when your passing game is struggling so much. I just don't get why he's not being involved in that way.
Yeah, I mean, you watch like the Chiefs games, and they're a running team. Like, they're literally a running team. That's one thing that people just choose to. And it's funny that they are a running team, and they have this offensive mastermind, Andy Reid, as the head coach. And yet there's some Bills fans that seem to constantly insist that Sean McDermott is ruining the Bills offense because he wants them to run the ball, which is what Andy Reid's doing. That's what they're doing in Kansas City. The reason I put this in the show notes is something that will bother me, and it's not going to stop because the NFL narrative around Patrick Mahomes will never change.
Speak your truth.
Patrick Mahomes has eight interceptions and 7 touchdowns on the season through 7 games. Any other quarterback in the NFL could have that right now, and they would be getting ripped to shreds. But he doesn't, and part of that is the 3 Super Bowls that he has, which is phenomenal. He's going to go down as one of the greatest players of all time. It does piss me off to no end that we cannot talk about players in the moment and how they're playing right now because people insist on bringing their past in. If you compare Josh Allen to Patrick Mahomes right now, undoubtedly, Josh Allen's playing significantly better than Patrick Mahomes. It's not even debatable. Yet, if you suggest that at all, you get ripped to shreds. The other point here that I think is really important is the thing I keep pushing people on Twitter about is I'm like, Patrick Mahomes has 8 interceptions. And Chiefs fans come in and say, well, how many wins do we have? Exactly. You're 6-0. It seems like the interceptions don't matter. But last year when Josh Allen had all those turnovers, they mattered. Yet the Bills were the 2 seed and the Chiefs were the 3 seed. But those turnovers mattered for Josh. They don't matter for Pat. And that's where this whole unfairness and this whole analysis comes to like a head. Patrick Mahomes is going to lead this Chiefs team or be a part of this Chiefs team that probably goes on, is the 1 seed, goes in the playoffs, and probably makes a run, if not wins the Super Bowl, because he'll turn it on in the playoffs like he always does. That being said, he's playing poorly right now. Like, it's undebatable. He's playing bad football. Right? You cannot have 8 turnovers and 7 touchdowns and be playing good football. He's not playing good football right now. That's just as simple as it can be.
This is also another feather in the cap of wins are not a quarterback stat.
100%.
Because 100%. The Chiefs are largely winning because the defense is as good as it is, and it's very good. And the fact that they traded away L'Jarius Sneed and for the most part just haven't missed a beat defensively is just so impressive and so annoying. It's just like, can you please just like look slightly worse than what you did last year? It's so irritating. I mean, guys like George Karlaftis and Brian Cook and Leo Chenal have all been draft picks in the last couple of years for them, and they've all been really strong contributors for them this year. Chris Jones is obviously still a beast, and I think Nick Bolton is a highly overrated player among many NFL circles, but he provides something to the team at times, I guess. I don't like Bolton. Trent McDuffie is also very, very good. Like Trent McDuffie, it will forever irritate me that he's not a Buffalo Bill right now instead of a Chief. Yeah, there's the defense is really good. The interior of the offensive line is still fantastic. The tackles are bad, but and I understand the statistics of Mahomes' season are not good, and some of that is definitely his fault because some of the interceptions he's thrown have just been bad and on him where he's just not seeing something.
Mm-hmm.
I'd also say that like the tackle situation there is bad. Like Juwan Taylor is okay, but they have this rotating door at left tackle, which is bizarre to me. That they have just decided, we'll hope for the best at left tackle, protecting the best quarterback in the NFL. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, but that's what they're doing. And their approach with receivers was odd, where it's like, we're going to sign Hollywood Brown. It's like, and Juju Smith-Schuster will be back. It's like, why are these your moves? I just don't get it.
I'm quite confident they're trading for somebody, and it might be DeAndre Hopkins with the whole thing with them yesterday. But the last thing I have on the Chiefs, like somebody had posted on Twitter, and it made me go look at their schedule. Their remaining schedule is pretty much a cupcake, except for there's a handful of games. You got the Bills, you got the Texans, you got the Steelers, I guess. I don't even know if I count the Steelers. You got the Bucks, which we'll see what the Bucks are tonight. And then you have Denver, who has a spicy defense, but Bo Nix it's a disaster. So there's a legitimate path, as crazy as it sounds, and as bad as their offense has been. There's a legitimate path where they could go 17-0. And of course, like in my head, they're going to go 17-0, and it drives me crazy. Like it seems like the Bills might be the one team that stands in their way, or the Texans, and they're like, we have to be the team that prevents them from going 17-0. So instead, they go 16-1. The Bills somehow go 15-2 and don't get a first round bye because of the stupid new rules. Where as soon as the Bills are good, no, it's only the first seed that gets the bye, not the second seed. Right. Hey, the Chiefs bother me. Again, we probably talked about them a little bit too long, but I'm just getting so frustrated by watching them play football.
Ariola Grande says, David, you got to take down the 14 behind your bed for an 18. So I appreciate that this seems like more of an Amari Cooper thing than a Stefon Diggs thing. I have talked about this before, but I'm never taking down that Stefon Diggs jersey because that was some of the coolest football that I've ever seen in my life. And nothing can trade that. Nothing can trade those memories away from me. And I love Stefon Diggs as much as I hate him. And that's that on that. That's all I gotta say about that.
It's very big of you. I'd almost say you're bigger than Stefon Diggs.
I'm never the bigger person. Let's briefly talk about that actually, because that's just so funny to me. That because these two, for those who didn't see, Stefon Diggs and Jaire Alexander have beef and have had beef for a while now. I think probably stemming back from their time in the NFC North when Diggs was in Minnesota, I would think. And then a couple years ago when the Bills played on Sunday night against the Packers, these two went at it. They really just could not stop jawing at each other. It was kind of funny, honestly, after a certain point. And especially after Diggs scored and immediately tried going after Alexander. And everyone has to pull Diggs away from him. And then after the game, Alexander's like, yeah, he didn't beat me. And it was like, what? What are you saying? And Jaire, it's very understandable why Jaire Alexander gets under people's skins. It's because he's a very weird dude.
Oh, he's a weirdo. That's one way to put it. Yeah,
he has something going on in his brain that like wires are connecting that shouldn't be, or aren't connected that should be. Something's going on with that dude. I don't know what exactly. I don't know what happened, but something weird happened to that dude at some point. and he just acts like the weirdest person in the NFL, which, for the record, is saying something. These two have beef. Before the game started between the Texans and the Packers, they were going after each other, almost started a fight, and then it's so bizarre. It's such a, and I get it. It's not so bizarre as to why it happens, right? Because Diggs is who he is, and Alexander is such a strange personality, but also like every time these two guys meet up with each other, it's like Steve Smith and Aqib Talib on Monday night that one year. I mean, it's crazy.
I mean, they're both weird dudes. Like even Diggs has that little weirdo energy to him. Both on and off the field for that matter. But I mean, as soon as I saw like there was a scuffle before the Packers-Texans game, I didn't even see who it was. There was a scuffle
between Diggs and basically everyone on the Packers.
Okay. My first thought was it was between Diggs and Alexander, like without seeing anything.
I think it started between them, but then it just escalated as it often does.
Yeah. In all honesty, though, and not that I watched the game, so I don't know who Alexander was covering on specific plays, but Diggs didn't have a good game, and the Packers held C.J. Stroud under 100 yards. So, if anything, yesterday, Alexander probably won that matchup, whereas you had referenced the game between the Bills and the Packers, where Alexander tried to imply that he didn't get beat by Diggs when we all literally watched him get beat by Diggs. So, it's an interesting, I guess, rivalry, which – that could be the last part of that. Actually, no, it won't. Diggs is going to be on the Cowboys next year, so they're going to be playing each other next season. It's I don't know. Stefon Diggs and Jaire Alexander. It's weird news.
It's crazy. Ralph Wilson Sr. says, without Nico Collins, Diggs stepped up with 5 catches for 23 yards and no touchdowns. Very weird that the Texans were so bad offensively, specifically in the passing game yesterday. I mean, that was bad. Like, I really could not. I was astounded by like 85, 86 passing yards for CJ Stroud. That's just bad, man. I don't know how you do that. Keon Coleman, Truthful, love the Roundup. We love you, my man. All right. I feel like we've spent a lot of time on non-Bill stuff, and even though we do have other stuff we could talk about, we're going to move on to the Bills. So let's talk about the first thing and probably the most irritating thing about this game, which is not really even just this game. It's been a theme for the Bills for a while now, which is a slow start at the beginning of games, which is frustrating, and I don't like it. Especially defensively. And I believe that Adam in our chat brought this up, that the defensive EPA per play as the game goes on is so telling about, like, this isn't just like our imagination. This isn't like, oh, this is a little thing or whatever. This is a very real thing. So in the first quarter, the Bills have the 31st defense in terms of EPA per play, which is second worst if you're trying to figure out like how that works. It's second worst. And that's in the first quarter. Second quarter, 15th in defensive EPA per play. Then it jumps to 7th in the third and 2nd in the fourth. So as the game goes on, this is for the whole season. This is not just this game. As the game goes on, the Bills defense clearly adjusts super well. And you kind of just wonder, like, okay, we know that you guys can do this. We know that you can like put together something that works. Why is it taking a full quarter at least in order to get there? It doesn't make sense to me.
It's incredibly frustrating because like it almost always just seems like it's one play every once in a while on a drive in the early parts of the game where like it's 3rd and 17 and the Bills give up like a draw play for a first down or something. Or it's, oh, the Bills got to stop, but they were offside, so there's a first down. Like it seems like they're just drive extenders that are mistakes on the Bills' part early in games that cause this slow start to occur, because then the teams march down the field, they put up 3 points, 7 points, whatever, and then the Bills kind of go into this like fumbling, like what do we do? What do we do? Like it's almost like they start panicking a little bit. And even I forgot who the announcers were yesterday, but they kept using the phrase like it looks like the Bills defense is pressing, and I agree with that. Like it looked like they were like, we need to go make a play now. Like we cannot let Mason Rudolph keep doing this to us. But eventually they settle down, and really it's halftime. When they get to halftime, whatever Sean McDermott and Bobby Babbitt say to them in the locker room, like I don't know how many schematic changes they're making necessarily, though they're I think Eric put out some zone versus man splits from the first half and second half that were starkly different. But whatever they say to that team in the locker room, or whatever Terrell Bernard's saying to the rest of the team, they change. They come out and they're this great defense. And even against the Ravens, and people will forget because of how that game ended, but when the Bills defense came out right away in that third quarter, they played really well. And then the Bills just kept making stupid ass mistakes on offense, and the game just got away from them. But they are a great second half defense, but they need to be a better first. Like they need to be better in the first half. This can't continue.
You just and I see people kind of say online that, like, you know, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep doing this because against a better team, you won't be able to come back. Like, look at the Ravens and the Texans game. So, first of all, they almost did come back against the Texans, and I wouldn't even necessarily say it was the defense's fault that that game got to that point.
Yeah.
And, you know, I watched that. Excuse me. I watched that Vikings-Lions game, or most of it. The Lions started off 10-0, and they looked bad to start that game. Like, if that had been a Bills game, that would have been a full-blown meltdown online. The Lions came back, and it became a back-and-forth game between two very, very good teams. And yes, you could very easily, in my opinion, argue that the Lions are a more complete and more put-together team right now than the Bills are, just sort of top from bottom as a roster. That being said, I think it shows that, like, a good team going against a good team does not automatically mean that you're going to not be able to come back just because you start slow. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I don't want them to start slow, right? Like I put that into my recap yesterday. It's like, just figure out something where you're not starting. So, and to his credit, I'm gonna use Ariola Grande's comment here to make this point. Can't wait for you guys to talk about McDermott messing up an unmess-upable thing again. Gotta find a better way to phrase that. The coin toss. So clearly McDermott wanted to start off on a better note than maybe giving up points on the first drive and taking the defense and then deferring to the second half. So he wanted to start an offense. And hey, if Amari Cooper catches that pass, I don't know what happens. Maybe they score at least a field goal, and then it's 3-3, and maybe they're a little bit better, a little more put together. Maybe they're able to adjust a little bit easier on the sideline because they actually have time to do it on the sideline because the Bills had 3 straight 3-and-outs to start the game on offense.
Yeah.
But to say that this is something that McDermott screwed up, specifically the coin toss, I don't buy that at all. I actually was surprised and kind of glad that he went with the receive option in this game because it showed, like, okay, he wants to start off with a 7-0 score. That was the goal, obviously. Just didn't happen. That's not the offense. Your newest guy dropping a pass, which if there's a clear weakness of Amari Cooper, it's that sometimes he has drops. That's not on Sean McDermott. Like, you can try to, like, weasel your way into thinking that, but it's just not. At a certain point, the coaches do what they do and the players do what they do. And that particular play, which could have extended the drive, It just didn't work because of the players.
Yeah, the thing. Look, I
For
almost
themselves, because
always
the coverage wasn't working. Sorry, my internet is bad. Go on.
You're good. I almost always side with deferring to the second half. In this game, when I first heard it, I'm like, geez, I don't love that, but let's see what happens. And it was aggressive. Like Sean McDermott was being aggressive, something that he's often not referred to as. He's often referred to as a conservative coach. That was an aggressive thing to do, to say, we'll take the ball first. They take the ball first, and like you said, Amari Cooper drops the pass. Amari Cooper doesn't drop that pass. The Bills probably go down and score at least 3 points, maybe 7 points, and we are having a very different conversation about whether or not Sean McDermott should have elected to take the ball or not take the ball. It ended up being a moot point in this game. It was something that, you can question. I just don't think you can put the blame, like, we're going to put the blame on him for how the Bills started. And the coin toss being part of it. Like, people are going to do that. The thing that bothers me, and I tweeted this out yesterday, if you want to put the blame on Sean McDermott for the way this game started, be my guest. Like, you can do whatever the hell you want. But if you do that, then you better also give him credit for how the game ended. Like, you cannot pick the negative and say, oh, that's Sean. Sean's the negative. He's the only reason that the Bills were struggling in the first half, which is wholeheartedly not true. Josh Allen, Amari Cooper, like, people were struggling on offense and defense for the Bills. You can blame him if you want, but then you have to give him credit when things go well. And the Bills adjusted in this game. And to this whole extent of the Sean McDermott thing, I forgot who it was. Somebody tweeted out what Sean McDermott said in the halftime interview, except they omitted the one part of it that actually made sense that Sean McDermott said. Sean essentially said, yeah, we got to play better complementary football. The defense needs to play better, and we need to establish the pass. What was left out in the tweet by, I believe, as a reporter or maybe a content creator, was we need to establish the pass. So he basically took out the part that people want Sean McDermott, or they blame Sean McDermott for creating issues with our passing game. They took out that part of the conversation and then pretended like he didn't have something to say with how they started just feeding Josh Allen the ball and saying, throw, 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 throw. Like, Sean McDermott has a lot of faults. At points last year, I was even questioning his employment. You can go back to the show after the Broncos game. I was like, if they fire him, they fire him. Like, I'm not going to be upset. That being said, he's done a lot of good in Buffalo. And in this game, he did more good than bad. Like, they found a way to win and win by 24 points. You don't beat NFL teams by 24 points consistently. That's impressive, regardless of if it was Mason Rudolph. Like, come on.
RJ says, so the team that has one of the worst scoring percentages on first drive takes the ball first. This team starts slow. They should always take the ball last. So against a team whose defense was depleted largely because L'Jarius Sneed didn't play, and you want to start, teams want to start hot. Teams want to start with a lead. And against a defense that was kind of depleted, and easily the best part of that Titans team is their defense.
Yeah.
Like, why not try to take advantage of it? Why not do something a little bit different? Why not give yourself a little bit more breathing room? Like, I don't understand this thought process or logic here. I understand it. I just think it's wrong.
I think that, like, the goal of Sean McDermott was to attack that depleted defense, but also to force the Titans to be one-dimensional, force them to put the ball in Mason Rudolph's hands over and over again, and also have a defense that knows that it has to be in Mason Rudolph's hands. You don't do this against a team like the Ravens or the Chiefs because you don't want the ball in Lamar Jackson's hands. You don't want the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hands. So forcing that, it's a different scenario. It made sense to some extent. Again, if it was up to me, I'm probably picking to defer almost every single game. Maybe there's once in a blue moon I won't pick to defer, and this game probably wouldn't be it. But I understand the logic behind it, and it didn't work out because Amari Cooper dropped a pass. Otherwise, it probably works out. So it's a talking point that'll probably never end until and if Sean McDermott can lead this Bills team to a Super Bowl. Even then, people will say that it wasn't Sean McDermott; it was everybody else winning in spite of him. So
exactly, they won in spite of McDermott, which is so silly. Franta Futini says catching a pass from Allen is different from Watson. Allen puts some heat on the ball; it comes at you quick. Looked like he wasn't expecting it so fast. Maybe. He's also been in the league for enough years. and he was open enough. Like, this wasn't like a super contested catch that he had to make. He was open. He had space to adjust to it. I think just make the catch.
And
Just,
he made a great catch later
he
in the game.
He made plenty of great catches throughout that game. Way more. I mean, you want to talk about using your new toy. I mean, he was involved way more than I thought he would be involved. And the fact that he was just out there doing different things and kind of displaying all the different aspects that make him a good receiver, and not the least of which is just like being able to be isolated on the backside of a formation when you have other players on the other side, and still being able to come in and say, hey, we can just leave you here and still throw to you because we know you can win one-on-one. Like, that's why you brought in Amari Cooper, and that's what they did. I think that was great, and it was great seeing him contribute in that way immediately. Again, if you have not watched Eric's breakdown of Amari Cooper's premiere with the Bills, go watch it. It's a good 16, 17 minutes, totally worth it. I'm just very, very happy with this trade right off the jump, even if that first drop was rough.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree.
Let's see, what else do we have here? So offensively, Josh Allen finishes the day 21 of 33 for 323 yards, 2 touchdowns. Again, no interceptions. What a man. What a turnover machine this dude is, right? James Cook with 12 carries for 32 yards. Ray Davis with 5 carries for 41 yards. Both scored a rushing touchdown. It was weird that they were pretty adamant about throwing the football throughout this entire game, and that going into halftime, McDermott said we need to establish the pass. One, because it was true, but also, I mean, very, very clearly, at no point did they seem like they were interested in running the ball, even late in the game when they had a big lead.
Yeah,
they're like, no, just gonna keep throwing, just got to keep throwing. And to their credit, they were right.
Yeah, that Keon Coleman catch was nice, and late in the game, it was a little bit surprising just because the Bills were already up by 2 scores, or 3 scores at that point, I think. Yeah, they were up by 17 at that point. So a little surprising to see them throw a little bit of salt in the wounds of the Titans. Maybe the Titans pissed Sean McDermott off at some point. Maybe he still remembers when Mike Vrabel tried to get them to do the forward lateral on a kickoff return a couple of years ago. Even though Mike Vrabel is no longer on the team, I could see Sean McDermott holding a grudge against a franchise. Yeah, they didn't really try to establish the run at all. And I was surprised about the light workload for Ray Davis. That being said, maybe the injury played into it. And you kind of alluded to it, like the excitement with Amari Cooper and what it does for the Bills offensively both through the air and on the ground. Like, he's somebody you need to focus on. So it's going to open up a bunch of people. And now the emergence of Ray Davis after that Jets game, and even in this game, putting up 41 yards on 5 carries, like, this offense is getting better, which is really exciting because it's been good at times. It's been really bad at times too. I want to see more consistency, and I want that consistency to be closer to good. And if the Bills can start building that, complementary style now that Cooper and Ray Davis are a part of the team, really, of the offense, this could bode well come season's end. Like, the Bills still have a long way to go to wrap up the AFC East for the 5th straight season. Still have a long way to go for seeding, but things are trending in the right direction for this offense right now.
You know who else is getting involved in this offense is Keon Coleman. And what was clearly his best day as a Buffalo Bill yesterday, if he had caught that touchdown, it was so close. Yeah. It was so close to being a true highlight reel catch that he made. Just bobbled it, and toe was just out of bounds. It was a really good day for Keon Coleman, and when he broke away on that catch late on the slant, if you remember, and maybe you don't have the same psychotic memory for random football plays that I do, but that you probably do too. Who am I kidding? But if you remember when Jamar Chase was a rookie, and the Bengals played the Ravens, and Jamar Chase had that 90 or 80 or 70 yard touchdown catch and run, and he just spins away from a would-be tackler and breaks away into the open field. That's basically what that reminded me of almost immediately. And honestly, had he not tripped up coming out of that tackle, he probably scores.
Yeah.
Probably. But,
Yeah.
He didn't, and he didn't. So,
yeah, Keon Coleman, like, he had me very excited yesterday. There was a point I think I even tweeted out, like, feed Keon Coleman. He just seemed to be he seemed to be better than whoever was guarding him. Whenever he was running a route, and maybe that has to do with Amari Cooper and Amari Cooper pulling or having some gravity, pulling people away from him. But I also think Keon Coleman's slowly improving, and that's really exciting as well, because now the Bills' second round draft pick, not a first round draft pick, is starting to emerge as a threat in this offense. And incidentally, like, for all the people crying about, like, oh, the Bills should have done this, should have done that, should have taken this guy, should have taken that guy, like, Keon Coleman ranks 4th in receiving yards by a rookie, Brock Bowers being the only non-wide receiver ahead of him. So really 3rd amongst wide receivers behind Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors, like, ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr., ahead of Rome Odunze, who he does have a game on, but nonetheless, like, give Rome Odunze another game. I don't think he's getting the 326 yards. That's really good, and that's really exciting that Keon Coleman is kind of outperforming realistic expectations, right? He's both of us, I think, on a show at some point, we're like, he's not going to have 1,000 yards. Like, he's not going to have 100 catches. That's fine. That's okay. If he has 600 yards this year, I think I said I'd be happy. And he's over halfway there, and we're a third of the way through the season. Like, that's really good. This should be a really exciting thing for Bills fans.
And it wasn't just like he was doing one specific thing over and over again, right? It was the slant and breaking away. It was adjusting on a broken play in the second quarter to get open against a busted coverage and spark the Bills into getting that first touchdown in the second quarter, which was critical. And the fact that he was able to immediately recognize that the play that Allen was breaking away, and that he saw where the open spot was, and he was just like, immediately he knew exactly what to do and where to go, and made a big play. And again, we know he can make contested catches, and he did a really good job as well. Like, you're seeing little bits and pieces. You're seeing a little bit more comfortability. I think as the season goes on, and especially now that Amari Cooper is here and the more he integrates into the offense, I think you're just going to see this Bills passing game look a little easier. It's not going to look quite so strained to get 10 yards from this Bills passing game, which is what they needed more than anything else, quite frankly.
That's a great take, because I think that anybody that's been watching the Bills the past few weeks, at least, it seemed like the only way that they were able to move the ball through the air was Josh had to break the pocket, avoid pressure, and then basically force somebody to get open downfield just by buying time and then deliver a pass. I think what you're going to see more of now with Amari Cooper there, Keon Coleman improving, Khalil Shakir getting healthier, is you're going to start seeing Josh be able to sit in the pocket and really go through progressions and say, I'll feed this. Like, everybody can eat now because I have time to serve them. Like, I think that's where we're going, and that's super, super, super exciting. This offense is going to be fun to watch for the remainder of the season, and starting against Seattle here, come less than a week, it should be a good game.
I love everyone should be able to eat now, because now I have time to feed them. That needs to be used somewhere. Sweet Spike says, I want the tight ends to be more involved. Seems like everyone else can get their tight ends wide open all the time. I'm sure after yesterday's game against the Titans, it feels that way, because that's basically all the Titans could do was just go play action and throw to their tight ends in the flat or on a stick route or something. And I empathize with that. I sympathize with that. I think that Dalton Kincaid actually made several really, really good catches yesterday, which also, can we discuss something here? What is this asinine bullshit on challenges?
Oh man,
what is this? So first of all, okay. The first thing is Callahan threw the flag late, technically. But he did indicate that he wanted to challenge. He just kind of the rule is that the flag has to land in the field of play, and a referee has to acknowledge it, essentially. But the flag has to land first, which is, first of all, stupid that's an actual rule. But I understand them giving the challenge to him because he made an indication that he was going to challenge. It's just that this one little rule didn't quite fit, right? Whatever. I don't have beef over that. But then they go to challenge. Okay, they challenge that Dalton Kincaid made the catch, which he did. He caught it, had possession, took 3 steps, and then fumbled, and the ball went out of bounds. Okay, so he made the catch, which is what they called on the field. Except that they then said the call on the field of a catch remains the same, but it's now changed to a catch and fumble out of bounds. Therefore, Tennessee wins the challenge and keeps their timeout.
Stupid. Yeah.
So what does it matter? What you're challenging if something changes, you just automatically win the challenge that way. That makes no sense to me. I don't get this system at all.
No, honestly, you should just say I challenge.
Yes.
Why are we saying what you're challenging? Like it doesn't matter any. This is my problem with how it started and even how it ended. When you talk about like they honored the challenge by the Titans. That's not the rule. It's not the rule. It's not the job of the referees to decide how to interpret the rule. It's their job to enforce it. Like we can't just decide when we want to enforce a rule and when we don't want. Like that's not how rules work. That's not how rules work in the NFL. Like that's the thing that bothered me most is they just decided in the moment like, no, we'll allow it. But why? Why? And then when they do get the challenge and the call doesn't get reversed because he did catch it, he just fumbled it afterwards. It's like, okay, but they weren't successful challenging it because they challenged the catch. So again, it seems like the refs are just making it up as they go. And that's the thing that bothers me is because now come 2 weeks, I can see something happening where Sean McDermott throws the flag late and the refs are like, oh no, you didn't get it in time.
Yeah.
How do I know if that's going to happen or not? Like they can just pick and choose when they want to enforce the rules. And that's what bothers me is because the refs, like if they just stuck to the book and were like, nope, that's the rule, it would be much easier for me to say like, hey, look, dude, they're just following the rules. The rules are stupid. But instead they are interpreting ones that are very literal by definition. So that's the thing that bothers me. It just stupid.
It's and what's funny is that they in terms of how they decide to rule this, right? Like they decide to go more with the spirit of the law when allowing the Titans to challenge, and then they went with the letter of the law when allowing the Titans to retain their timeout after winning the challenge.
Yeah.
It's so weird. I really don't understand what that is all about. It doesn't make any sense to me. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because the Bills won by so much. The catch went the way it should have gone, blah, blah, blah. But like you said, in a different game with a different crew, that might be different.
Yeah.
And really they don't, because if I'm remembering correctly, right, like replay is done or is ruled on by New York.
Yeah, they don't look in the thing anymore and pick. It's called in, and they're like, "That's what it is."
Yeah. So the referees. so really, the only thing that the referee did was allow the Titans to have the challenge.
Correct.
In the first place, New York seems to be the one that ruled. No, they're wrong that the challenge for the catch is wrong, but there is a fumble on the play, so the challenge is upheld and it is overturned, so they do keep their challenge. It's just like, that doesn't make sense. And I don't have confidence that that's going to be ruled the same way in a different game.
Yeah.
Even though it is the same group of people that are ruling it. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Even when I go to the Jets game, like, he threw the challenge flag. It didn't go in the field of play, but
Really?
it doesn't matter. We make up the rules anyway. So he challenged it. Oh, but no. I bet you if the Jets didn't score a touchdown on that play, that the refs come and say, we'll honor the challenge.
Yes.
But they scored a touchdown.
Oh, 100%.
So something cool happened. It's basically the Chiefs rule, right? So if something cool happens, you throw the rule book out, because cool is all that matters in the freaking NFL. So yeah, man, it also goes back. It's still my angst from the Jets game where Rodgers clearly fumbled. He was tucking and he fumbles it, but the replay assist from New York comes in and corrects it and is like, no, that's an incomplete pass. So now, because replay assist came in from New York and ruled incorrectly, Sean McDermott can't even challenge the play, even though we know he fumbled. It's like, everyone just shut the hell up and follow the rule books. Like, what are we doing? Don't keep changing shit. These refs drive me nuts. They drive me nuts every week.
It's so bad. It's just so irritating. And like, if I remember correctly, when they implemented the challenge system initially, it was like a button that they could push.
I'm not sure.
That like signal to someone, I guess. And I think that they went away from that because they had issues with the button. Like, it wasn't signaling correctly. Now, this is like early 2000s, right? I distinctly remember a clip of former Cowboys head coach Dave Campo, like just like, it's like on his side as a pack, just like, challenge, and he's like panicking, like pressing it repeatedly, like someone stuck in an elevator. But and I understand that, like, the technology back then probably wasn't great for that, but it's the year of our Lord 2024. At this point, let an AI do it.
Like, we could do a whole show on rules. Like, the one that bothers me to no end is when the play clock has zero, the excuse for the refs is, well, they need time to look back down at the ball. It's like, if it hits zero, we know that they didn't snap it. It's a penalty. You don't get zero. You don't get -1 seconds. Like, it's zero. They didn't snap it. Throw the flag. And it should all be automated at this point. I don't understand why we have to keep playing this game where we're walking around with freaking pins and needles to measure where the ball is on the field. And then sometimes we bring in a note card to measure the distance between. It's ridiculous, dude. It's freaking ridiculous. And it's going to affect the outcome of games. It drives me crazy.
And the God, that note card game. Just like, there's part of me that looks back on it now, because we're far enough removed from it now, where I'm like, that's just funny. Yeah. Especially the look that Gene Steratore has when he comes up, and it's just like, yep, first down. Because it's just so stupid and funny, but in the moment it's just like, what are we doing here? Like, what is this process? And I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you do, but the 2008 Bills Chargers game where the lights of the power went out in the Bills Stadium and they had to keep everything by, like, manually, right? And the referee, I don't know who it was. I might have to look it up. I think it's like, there's like an ESPN little like segment on YouTube somewhere about this moment, and he talked about how, like, yeah, we talked with both coaches, make sure they were okay with doing things manually. And the biggest issue was the play clock, because, you know, obviously they're so used to looking at the play clock, both the referees and the offense. But, you know, we had it, and I was trying to be generous with it. I gave them 1 Mississippi. Sometimes I would give them 2 Mississippis. And then there were times where I just had to throw the flag, and then they would get mad at me. And it's like, listen, I gave you as much time as I possibly could, and then some. But that's not the situation here right now. And we're still having the same issue. Like,
yeah, we have lights and backup generators now. Like, figure it out, refs.
Oh man. Anyway, to go back to where this all started, Dalton Kincaid had a really good game, I thought, and he made like the catches that he made were actually like all very impressive catches. They were not all easy catches, and it was very good. I'm starting to feel a little bit better about Kincaid. It's not all the way there yet, I think. And again, I think this is going to be something that gets a boost as a result of Amari Cooper being on this team. But it's trending the right direction. Let's go with that. It feels like it's moving closer to what we were expecting from Kincaid in year 2. So that's what I'm excited for and helpful.
Yeah, I think now that they have Amari Cooper, Josh has 2 safety blankets in Dalton Kincaid and Khalil Shakir. And because they have the ability to put those 2 with Keon Coleman and Amari Cooper on the field, they can create mismatches, and it buys Josh time to go find one of them. So I think you'll see an uptick in receptions for Kincaid, even though Amari Cooper now is here and also needs to eat, which it's again exciting. I hope Josh throws it 35 times a game, to be honest, just because he looks so good throwing right now. He can dice defenses apart, and Dalton Kincaid is a part of that.
It's going to be so devastating when Josh Allen throws his first interception against the Chiefs.
He has to throw it before then. I don't give a shit. Like, it cannot be against him. I throw it against the Seahawks. I don't care.
It's just, I don't like it. I don't like it. All right, let's talk about the defense. So, defense, they were good after the first quarter, essentially, because they gave up the 10-0 deficit early on, and that was it. I mean, truly, that was all they got out of that. It was incredible how much better the defense was after the first quarter. Terrell Bernard, despite the multiple injuries he had, also made multiple big plays, as he is wont to do during a football game. Greg Rousseau was fantastic as a pass rusher, just getting so much pressure. AJ Epinesa had a strip sack again. Just really, really good. Dwayne Carter's starting to get involved more. The consistency isn't there with Dwayne Carter yet, but he was in on that big 4th down stop coming out of the third quarter. Him and Taylor Rapp, like Carter and Smoot blew it up. Rapp just flew in like a missile and made the contact, and Carter finished it off. It was just a really, really good team effort all around from them. The biggest thing just being that, because Mason Rudolph is not an NFL capable quarterback, they did everything they could to hide him by doing all this sort of like cheapy stuff, right? Like everything had play action. Everything was a rollout. Everything was a screen. Like it was clear very early on, like from that first drive, like, oh, they do not think Mason Rudolph can win this game for them. And they're right, for the record, because no offensive coordinator, nobody that has ever called plays for Mason Rudolph in the NFL has ever thought, oh yeah, Mason Rudolph can win this game for me. It's always, I need to do everything I can to keep Mason Rudolph from doing something bad.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I can't remember if I tweeted it or I wrote it in my Bills preview for SI.com/NFL/Bills. And I don't even remember the URL now.
Something
anyway,
like
with Will Levis at quarterback, the Titans can win the game, but Will Levis is probably going to lose you the game. With Mason Rudolph at quarterback, Mason Rudolph isn't going to lose you the game, but he's not going to win you it either. So essentially, as soon as Mason Rudolph was announced, it pivoted the deciding factor of the game 100% to the Bills. The Bills were the only team capable of losing this game. The Titans weren't going to go beat them, and that was pretty obvious with the way Mason Rudolph played. And he played well at the start of the game, but as the Bills started to get a little bit more exotic, and like I alluded to earlier, I think Eric posted the splits. In the first half, it was like 95% zone to 5% man. And in the second half, they went about 50-50 zone man on Rudolph, and that caused confusion. And then all of a sudden, that Titans offense that was moving the ball pretty effectively against the Bills just wasn't, because Rudolph wasn't capable of reading it, and they couldn't establish a ground game with Tony Pollard. So it was a good performance. There was a lot of players that had some pretty highlight-worthy things. That being said, grain of salt, it's the Tennessee Titans with Mason Rudolph and Tony Pollard. This is not the Ravens with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. But nonetheless, you held them to 10 points. I'm not going to be upset about it.
Yeah. A lot of NFL teams can't score 10 points in any given week. And even with the lack of talent at quarterback for the Titans, they still have some good players. The offensive line is not bad. And yeah, they did what was it just me, or should they have run the ball more?
The Titans? Yeah, they should run the ball way more.
I don't like, they were really intent on doing this like quick game, play action sort of stuff. And it just felt like at no point were they interested in like establishing the run with Tony Pollard, which made no sense to me at all. And it's funny because when they got into that super long, like third down situation, my thought was, oh, they're just going to throw it up to Ridley or Hopkins and try to get a pass interference or something. And then they just ran the ball. And I was like, really? You're not even going to try to get a penalty here? Like, it just didn't make any sense to me. And I kind of liked the Brian Callahan hire when it was made, because I felt he was an important part of the Bengals' success and Joe Burrow's development. And we're 7 weeks in, and Will Levis looks worse now than he did last year as a rookie. And the Titans offense as a whole just doesn't look all that good, despite adding more talent to it. It's a rough start there in Tennessee for the Brian Callahan era. Meanwhile, the defense, with a first-year defensive coordinator in Denard Wilson, I mean, they're not like totally out the wall talented, and it shows at times, but they're playing good football, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, the Titans, I forget the exact DVOA is coming into this game, but they were top 10, I think, against both the pass and the run, which DVOA does also adjust for, the quality of opponent as well. So it's not just like, oh, they were holding teams under 200 yards passing and they've played, scrub quarterbacks. No, they've played very well considering. And the Bills went in there and for the most part of the first half looked like the Titans were a really good defense. And then the Bills came out in the second half and said, oh, wait a second, we're the Buffalo Bills and this is the Tennessee Titans. Why don't we make this game look like that? And then you saw Josh Allen just kind of light the world on fire to some extent in the second half, and the Titans had no answer. But they were a decent defense. So as much as I can say, like, well, that's what the Bills were essentially supposed to do on their defensive side of the ball against that Titans offense, like, the Bills offense outperformed what they probably should have against the Titans. Granted, all of that was in the second half. Rather see a little bit more consistency there from Buffalo.
Special teams, Tyler Bass. Good on you, buddy. 4 extra points for 4 out of 4 extra points and 2 field goals, 2 easy field goals, let's be clear. But all your kicks were made, and that's all you need. Just make your kicks, buddy. That's all it needs to be. Don't need to make it more complicated than that.
Do you think in the next, I'll say 3, let's say before the bye week, are we going to see at any point a different player kick for the Bills? And I'm not saying Tyler Bass getting cut, because I don't think we can contractually do that, but the Bills call up somebody from the practice squad, let's say. Do you think before the bye week we see that?
So the Bills bye week is what, week 13 or something like that?
I think we have like 4 or 5 more games to go before then.
Yeah, so let's see. This next game will be week 8, 9, 10, 11. So week 12. It's a week 12 bye.
So there's 4 games.
So 4 games. Seahawks, Dolphins, Colts, Chiefs. No, because I think he'll be fine against Seattle. I like, unless it's a weird, like, super rainy game.
Weather game. Yeah.
Even then, I don't know. I think he'll be fine there. In Buffalo, early November against Miami, should be fine. Indoors against the Colts, should be fine. And then in Buffalo against the Chiefs, I don't think you're bringing in a practice squad kicker to kick against the Chiefs. That wouldn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it. I would say, unless he just is a disaster in Seattle, he probably has a minimum of 4 games. But I think it is real that the Bills are like, they worked out more kickers today, and they have I forget the exact kicker's name that's on the practice squad. Like I don't think that Haversick. I don't think that this is just a message necessarily to Tyler Bass. I think this is the Bills saying, we know that there's an issue here. Mm-hmm. We need to be prepared for if this issue reaches a breaking point, which it's come pretty damn close. And I will say, to some extent, it does look like the Bills realize that there's a problem, and they're not going to let Bass kick a 50-yarder. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, they'll go for it if they have to. He's not kicking 50 yards out. He'll kick 35 and under is, I think, where they feel comfortable with him right now.
Yeah. Going back to something here, Ralph Wilson Sr. from the Grave says, Titans suck at right tackle. Coach admitted as much in postgame. Crew should have had more than half a sack. Tons of almost pressures, not cutting it against good quarterbacks. So I'll be the first to say, because I also said this in my recap yesterday, that the desire to have more sacks is certainly there. I would like to see more sacks from this team rather than just pressures or quarterback hits. That being said, pressures at times, as opposed to getting sacks, I mean, you can sit here and say, well, pressures can lead to turnovers, which is true. But the other thing is that pressures sometimes happen as opposed to sacks because the coverage isn't there. And as you alluded to earlier, or just not alluded to, you just said, I mean, they were heavy zone in the first half and then 50-50 in the second half. And, I just think that you saw the pass rush start to come a little bit more consistently in the second half when they started playing a bit more man-to-man coverage. And I think when you're the Titans, I mean, that you have a bad right tackle and a statue quarterback. That's why they ran a bunch of screens. That's why they did a bunch of play action. And it's why they did almost exclusively quick game. There may be a very small handful of plays in which the Titans did a straight drop back and the Bills didn't get any sort of pressure. Maybe there's probably 2 or 3 plays where that happened. And I'm just guessing at that, quite frankly. I think the Titans did everything they possibly could, knowing the matchup they had, to neutralize what the Bills could do in terms of pass rush. They did everything they could to not just let the Bills pin their ears back and attack from the defensive line. Now, again, I want more sacks. I don't want to just have a bunch of pressures. But pressures in and of themselves are not like a net zero sort of thing or a neutral sort of thing. They're important. They're part of this. It's just that the way that the defense is built in particular, because it prevents big plays and because it's built structurally to put a cap on what an offense can try and do, you see a lot of quick game. You see a lot of dinking and dunking from opposing offenses, which means the ball comes out quickly. So you don't always get opportunities to get sacks. But if the coverage is good from those first couple of reads, then you start to see pressure. You see them start to sit, or you see them move around, and then you get more sacks that way. So it's a complementary game. Defense is not just one thing or another. Sometimes a defensive line just takes over a whole game. Sometimes a corner just shuts down the only receiver that a player has or that a team has. But sometimes you just need to work fully together as a unit. And that's what the Bills were lacking in that first half. And in particular, the first quarter. once it got more adjusted, you saw the defense as a whole play better. And I think that that's part of this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I want to see more sacks, and the main reason for that is like it's Patrick Mahomes, because when you play Patrick Mahomes, you have to get him to the ground, and seemingly no one can do that because he's so freaking like slippery. He somehow gets away. It drives me nuts. But I'm not going to get.
He's slippery and he's strong. That's what's annoying, is that like he can just like have someone draped on top of him and he's still standing up and trying to throw the ball to make an incomplete pass to negate the pressure and the contact. And it's deeply irritating, but he's also really good at it. And Josh Allen also does the same thing. So I get it, you know, it's, but
I will say to that end, like the Bills are right now, they're tied for 8th in total sacks, which I don't think a lot of people would expect. They have 19 sacks on the season. Granted, there's some teams that have only played 6 games, so let's say they fall down, but they're still probably top half of the league in sacks. And this stat also isn't fully accurate because it doesn't account for games this week. But coming into this week, the Bills ranked dead last in blitz rate at 12.9%. They're last. So essentially, they're doing this with a 4-man rush, while other teams like, let's say, the Denver Broncos are blitzing 38% of the time. So almost triple what the Bills are blitzing. So look, the pressures are good. Greg Rousseau looked dominant yesterday. Granted, it was against Nicholas Petit-Frere, who's not a good right tackle. But Buffalo needs to get to the quarterback more often. That being said, you brought up the quick game. Mina Kimes has talked about the quick game before. Like, that's how you attack this Bills team. And that's going to reduce the number of sacks that you can get because the quarterback's going to make a 3-step or sometimes not even a 3-step drop. They're just going to throw it right away. That's the way you beat this Bills team, in which case you just can't get to the quarterback. It's not possible. Do I want more? Yeah. Is it good enough right now? Yeah. Will it be good enough come playoffs if the Bills make the playoffs? I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. Do we want to talk about the Seahawks game next week?
We could hit it briefly.
Yeah. Seattle got off the schneid. They won their first 3 games and then they lost their next 3 games. And then I was listening to a show earlier today that said that they were like, I wanted to watch this Seahawks Falcons game because neither of these two teams play normal games ever.
Yeah.
So what was going to happen in this game? I wanted to see it. And then it's just like, yeah, no, Seattle just beat them pretty handily, pretty easily. And it's just like, well, that's boring. Like, so Seattle is now 4-3. They are now leading that division, which is interesting because I had no idea what to do with Seattle before the season started. I was like, I don't know. They could be like a 9-win team. They could also have like the first overall pick. I don't know. Like, it was just, I don't think I thought they were going to be that bad, but it was just so odd. I had no idea what to think of this team other than the fact that, like, oh, yeah, I like Geno Smith. I like DK Metcalf. I think the receivers in general are good. I like Kenneth Walker, but like, it was weird. It was a weird looking team on paper, and they lived up to that by winning their first 3 games and losing their next 3 games and then dominating the Falcons somehow. Geno Smith leads the NFL in passing yards with 1985. The aforementioned Kenneth Walker, though, is probably going to be the biggest problem, like active problem for this team, because Kenneth Walker is such a unique runner. He is, I mean, I as a Michigan State fan, I got to see Kenneth Walker as he made an unfortunately, strangely unsuccessful run at the Heisman, which I think is bizarre that he wasn't even in that conversation or even invited to New York for that season, but that's a different discussion. He was not the only thing that Michigan State offense had, but he was the primary thing that Michigan State offense had. And I distinctly remember, like, even halfway through the season, Michigan State's offensive linemen were asked about him, and they were like, yeah, we call him the eraser because it doesn't really matter if we block well. He just makes up for it. Like, he just completely erases every bad block that we have, which is kind of important when you're playing for Seattle right now because their offensive line freaking sucks.
Yeah, Kenneth Walker makes me nervous. Look, I like the story Geno Smith. I just can't like. He's not a great quarterback. He's good. Like he's a slightly above average quarterback, starting quarterback in the NFL. And I say that just because there's not a lot of good quarterbacks in the NFL, and he's better than a lot of bad quarterbacks. But coming into this game, like they match up pretty damn well against the Bills defense, especially if Terrell Bernard is injured, which remains to be seen. I was just like looking at the Bills schedule, and I see the Cardinals, the Ravens, the Texans, and the Jets. Those are the 4 teams I look at on the roster that are on our schedule thus far, where I'm like, they can run the ball and they can throw the ball. Granted, the Jets, I'm being a little bit generous with their ability to throw the ball right now. In all those games, the team that the Bills played scored at least 20 points. So I would expect the Seahawks to score at least 20 points this week, meaning we might have a shootout on our hands, and we might need Josh Allen in this offense to go put up 30 points to win this game. The good thing for Buffalo, this game isn't the end all and be all. It is an NFC game. It's against a decent team. I don't think they're great. They did lose to the Giants. It's going to be weird, and it's a trip to the West Coast. I don't really have a feel for how I think this is going to play out just yet.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. And Seattle is a weird team. I don't like that this is on the road in Seattle, but it'll be a good game. I think it's a good test for both of these teams. And yeah, I'm just really interested in seeing how the Bills are going to be able to attack Seattle defensively. Obviously, former starting linebacker for this team, Tyrell Dotson, is there. Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting matchup. It's going to be an interesting game, I think, and hopefully the Bills win. But even if they don't, it's not the end of the world, even though some people will probably treat it like it is. But I'm relatively confident in the Bills being able to get a win in this game against Seattle. And yeah, the main injury right now to look at, as someone mentioned this somewhere. Oh boy, now I can't find it. But DK Metcalf is someone who sprained his MCL, if I'm remembering correctly, and that's an important injury to follow. I think most people would probably assume that he's out, but DK Metcalf is also an athletic freak of nature, so I would not rule him out of this game quite yet. If Tariq Woolen, who is dealing with an ankle injury, can play, that'll also be a big boost for Seattle's defense. Injuries will play a part in this game, and hopefully the Bills will be able to come out with a win regardless of that.
Yeah, I mean, DK Metcalf would be a problem just because of that deep ball, especially with some questions maybe at safety for the Bills. And then you have Jackson Smith and Tyler Lockett underneath. Like, it's a really rough matchup for the Bills defense. But that being said, I've seen Sean McDermott scheme up games against better offenses than this and succeed. Maybe not this season, but in seasons past. And then if we can get this offense to continue to kind of improve like they have for the past 2 weeks, maybe put a full game together, it might not matter what the Seahawks offense does. It's possible that the Bills offense just says, we're better than you and we're going to win this game and go back home to play the Dolphins the following weekend.
Yeah, that's totally fair too. All right. Monday Night Football has started. Mike Evans scored his 100th career receiving touchdown, so that's cool. But we're gonna be signing off now. Thank you all for joining us tonight. It has been a joy and a pleasure to have all of you on here and watching our show. If you like this show and want to watch more of it and some other shows, hit subscribe below. Hit the like button on your way out as well if you haven't done it already. And consider signing up for Cover One Pass. It's totally worth it. It's the best $60 you'll spend on football all year. It's the best Bills content out there. Best group of Bills fans on Discord, probably, certainly. And it's just, it's totally worth it. It's the best way to support us here at Cover One. It's the most direct way of supporting us here at Cover One. And we're always very grateful to those who are One Pass subscribers. We know there are people like RJ and some others who are One Pass subscribers, and we're very grateful for all of you. Uber, where can the people find you?
At UberHansen on the Twitter. I'll drop a rooting interest post on Wednesday on the aforementioned Twitter, and then on Friday I'll be dropping my preview for the Seahawks Bills games on SI Bills.
You can find me at DFAUXY or at DFoxy on Twitter. I also write for Buffalo Bills or Sports Illustrated Buffalo Bills, and you can read what I write, specifically post-game recaps after each game, along with the occasional article here. I did write about the Amari Cooper trade last week. If you want to go and read that, I believe that's currently the pinned tweet on my profile, so an easy find there. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We hope to see you all next week after yet another Bills win. We will see you all then. Bye-bye.